what's interesting is when we initially started this journey, we didn't want to return to anything because that sounded like going backwards. What we really wanted to do is to make a choice about how to move forward. And we've always been a highly flexible company, and that comes from our rooted philosophy that if our employees are really excited about being here and the work they do, they're going to deliver a better customer experience. And if they're miserable, then they're probably not going to deliver an excellent customer experience. And flexibility is a key to that employee satisfaction. At the same time, we know our work is better when we do it together, and there are parts of our job that just don't translate well over a Teams call or a Zoom call. And that's where we want to get people back. So we're trying to, and I wouldn't say we've gotten there yet, but we're trying to approach this in a way to say, okay, there's a lot of good that came out of this. For an example, our work flows from office to office with less friction than it used to, because it's less important where they sit. But the downside is that we've lost some of the camaraderie. I think we've had some employees get more distant with the culture. And we have the folks who are here and highly engaged, probably doing more work than the folks who are more remote. So I think that's what we're trying to do, is how do we solve those problems as opposed to just saying, oh, I see them in the office, therefore that's good.
What keeps you up at night when thinking about the future of work?
Well, about everything. There seems to be a challenge du jour in terms of running a business in this climate, and then there's everyone wants to know what the future of work is, and as you can imagine, we don't have the answer. I don't think anybody has the answer, but I think we know there's some fundamental things us humans need, and we do need to be together physically. There's just a level of experience you get with being together that you don't get. There are books out and they talk about the Navy SEALs and their training and how the physical connectivity is such an important part of building that team, and we work in teams. But then there are plenty of jobs, plenty of professions that you can adequately perform in a remote environment. And I think what's going to be interesting is those roles will, I think, be, and this is a broad brush, but potentially less valuable, because you're in essence maybe tasking as opposed to competing or creating or innovating. And I think those types of activities that are high value activities to the enterprise need to be done in person at some point, not every day, 50 hours a week, but they need to be done in person. And so that's going to be interesting. I do believe that the office will have a place. They may be smaller, they may be more collaborative, there may be more of them, but in different types of marketplaces. I can't envision a world where we all are working from our guest bedroom.
Do you see PMC making more adjustments towards collaborative spaces versus their own desks or private offices?
Right, I think what's really important is that you design the space and furnish the space to solve your particular challenges, problems, needs. Many times clients ask, what's the trend, or what is so-and-so doing, and we really try to back them away from following somebody else, because the range of solutions are from tip to tip. So we have companies who have gone mostly remote, and we have companies who have said we are an at-office workplace and you can work remote on a rare occasion. And they're both right for their business and for what they do and for their employee base. And so what we try to do is help them understand themselves, help them get an alignment around that understanding, because that's a big part of this, because you can have within a business, within the different personality types, points of view, and there needs to be an alignment, or at least an understanding of what are we designing to solve for. And that helps build the communication strategy to the team. When they show up, they get why it looks the way it looks and why there might be less individual space, because folks can do that type of work remotely, and maybe there's a more concentration of collaborative space, because that's why we're coming into the space, is to be together. And we've kind of gone through that same journey. Our spaces are definitely more collaborative. We just finished a renovation in Charlotte, and there is less individual space and more shared space. And the other part of that, which is interesting, is the individual space needs to be a little bit more acoustically private. I think many folks, when they worked in this sea of desks, sort of got used to having to wear earbuds and having it be loud. And after 2 years of having, depending on your personal home life and your family or your roommate situation and how much space you have, but some folks were able to have a pretty quiet place where they could focus. They come back in the office and they go, where can I do that? So there are more private individual spaces that we're seeing to help accommodate for that person who needs that, who found that they needed it, found maybe they perform better in that type of environment through the work from home timeframe.
How has the past 2 years opened your mind?
Well, I think it's not just opened my mind, but it's blew my mind. I think it's blown many business leaders' minds. I think having been through a few adjustments, recessions, the 2000 with the terrorist attack and with the financial crisis in 2008, I think many people felt like, okay, we can manage through these crises and we'll be okay, like we can handle anything. Then you get a global pandemic and literally you get shut down and you're like, hadn't seen that one coming. So it was incredibly challenging and stressful. And I think the open mind piece is how we were able to be resilient through that. It's pretty amazing that we primarily do office space, and you pick the statistic, between 25 and 75% of the people aren't back in offices, but our business is growing. We're engaging with clients trying to do special things. That's blowing my mind or opening my mind, and the way our team has responded. Like I said, there's been many benefits from working remote. We work better across our locations. Our folks are relying on the technology more. We have all of our applications and business systems are cloud-based, so when we had to go home as opposed to go in the office, we didn't skip a beat. But as you can imagine, when you're physically present, you can skip the system and just walk over and talk to somebody. So it has helped people maybe live more in the system and rely on the technology. So that's been eye-opening. So now how do we take the best of that, but also re-engage in the personal connections that are required for us to deliver great work? Because we do create things, and to create things, I think we need to be together. And I think it's also opened my mind to, one size does not fit all. We've always had that philosophy. Our customers, as I mentioned, go across the spectrum, but even with our own team, there are roles in our company that are very well handled through a remote worker, and then there are some roles that aren't. And that's, I think, probably the biggest challenge is the level of empathy that a business brings to those conditions. We've been a company that is very empathetic and really tries to support the whole person, whether that's you're taking care of an aging parent, you have a new child, you've got a condition in your personal life that requires you to lean out a little bit. We have other folks lean in and pick that up. I think that's a really attractive piece about being here. At the same time, if you get too empathetic, then you have folks who are missing deadlines, who are not present, who are not engaged, who let down the team. And I think that's where we're needing to, and it's not often, but there are times when there's a limit to the amount of empathy you can give and still perform to the customer expectation. And I think this 4-day work week is an example. There probably are plenty of businesses that don't have to answer the phone on Friday. Ours is not one of them. At 3 o'clock on Friday, a couple weeks ago, I got a call from a client who had some questions on an installation that was finishing up. And as you can imagine, with supply chain, not everything was there. And it's 3 o'clock on Friday. That client expects to get an answer to the question. And so I think that's going to be a really big challenge, is some businesses can provide an exceptionally flexible environment, and others, if you're a waiter, you can't take Fridays off. You have to physically be present. So there are these jobs that require physical presence all the time. some that require it some of the time, some that require it very rarely. And it'll be interesting to see how well people match up. And that's also, I think, an interesting point is, we like ambitious people. We like people who really want to do great work, who certainly prioritize their family and their personal life higher than their work life, but they want to do something great. They want to contribute at a high level. And those folks want to be here. And there are people who don't really view work as that big of a part of their life. And there are going to be plenty of jobs for folks who can sort of deliver that and get a reasonable paycheck and work from home and never break a sweat. I don't know that that's going to be our culture. I just don't think we can deliver to our client expectation with that kind of a model. And so I think you'll find people moving, and I think maybe that's what's driving part of this movement is, hey, I think I'd like that kind of a role better than that kind of a role. And it's going to take a while to sort out, and many companies, including us, are going to get parts of it wrong. But that's going to be an interesting journey for all of us to go down. But I think if you want to have a really meaningful career, I can envision it done by yourself remotely. I'm sure there's a way, I can't see it. But then again, I grew up at a time and started working when if somebody proclaimed you need to be in the office 40 hours a week, that wasn't oppressive. And today that statement is viewed as like out of bounds, oppressive, not empathetic. So, I've got a generational thing I need to understand of how I was brought into the work world and how I was raised and how that maybe doesn't align with today. So.
Well, speaking to that idea of different generations in the workforce, you not only have the younger generation coming in that has grown up with technology and living in the cloud,
right,
but they're also coming into the workplace during this pre-pandemic, post-pandemic time. How have you grappled with that as well?
It's a challenge, and what I think is interesting is I don't know that generations define it as accurately as maybe personality types or roles. My son-in-law works remote. His company is fully remote, and they just had a new baby, and he's like, hey, can I come by your office? I'd love to have a place to work where there's a little energy, and I don't feel the pull like I gotta take care of the baby, and not 5 days a week, but just as a change of scenery. So I think you have that. And then you have others who really enjoy the remote and would never consider a career where the office was part of the deal. And again, I think we're going to all figure that out, and businesses are going to have to really sort of profile their roles and their positions and say this is a role that's well suited for remote, and this is one that isn't. And we'll see. But I think it's, again, emotionally you go, I need everyone in the office. Like many of our leaders came to me and said, Harry, you have to proclaim you need to be in the office, just flat out say it. And I'm like, okay, I can do that, but I believe when you force somebody to do something, you're going to get a level of contribution that's different than if you encourage them or that they are moving towards that because they see the value in it and the benefit of it, and they want to do it. Like, you can't stop somebody from doing well when they want to do it. And if you have to force them, you're probably trying to force the wrong person to do something, and rather find the person who is gravitating toward whatever it is you're trying to achieve as opposed to forcing them. That's been my experience. But obviously, sometimes you just got to do stuff. But as a general rule, if people are doing things because they have to, that's not a long-term great result, I believe.
Which bird do you prefer, flamingos or emus?
So I'd probably have to say flamingo, and a lady in our neighborhood puts 50 flamingos on your front yard when you turn 50 and 60 when you turn 60, so that's kind of fun. So I'd say flamingo. So the one topic I'd like to throw out there, and we can talk about how we queue it up, is in the return to work, under that topic, we see many business leaders hesitant to mandate a return. And they're hesitant because the workforce, and again, broad brush, but in many companies, big companies, companies that are published, it's said by the employees, if you make me come back to work this much time, I will quit. So you could argue there's a power shift, and now the employees have the power, and prior to however this new economic thing we're living in that appears to be leaning towards a recession plays out, there's a power shift. The employees have the power, and maybe many would say, before the business had the power and the employee had to abide by that. And I think those are true dynamics that we're facing. What we've tried to do, and we're certainly not there perfectly, but I believe it should be a balance. Like, we need to deliver an environment where people choose to go to work to achieve their hopes and dreams and fulfill themselves, bringing in their talents, working with other people who they like to work with. And the business needs to get a return, or it doesn't survive. And so when one has too much authority or power, and if businesses take advantage of employees, if they provide poor working conditions, if they lock them up in legal agreements and they can't leave, I think that's not good. I mean, we're a free market. We should be a free market. We should be a free market in terms of how we work with our teams. And I think the same for the employees, that yes, you can hold your company over a barrel, but does that help you? I mean, they're your company. And many times there's an adversarial relationship between employee and business, and I get that. I'm not that innocent and not understand that, but I don't think that's where you get your best results. And especially when it comes to knowledge workers, creative people who you are hiring and paying to innovate and solve problems, I think a mutually beneficial, agreeable partnership will deliver a better result than one holding the other over the barrel. It's a lot harder, but I think it delivers a better result.
It could be said that the authority needs to be in the right place.
Yeah, and again, we try to not manage with authority. Maybe it comes from my kids who they didn't want to hear "I told you so," or "do it because I've told you to." You needed to create the reason, and I know many people who hear this are going to think that's a bunch of hogwash. Like, you're the boss, tell them what to do, and it's that simple. And it can be, but I don't think that's not a high performer. When I had bosses working with me, I didn't perform well under somebody who said, "Do it because I told you so." I worked better under people that said, "Let's hit this objective. How do you think we should do it? What do you need? How do we work together to get that?" That was much more inspiring, and I worked better in that environment than the other. And so I try to provide that. And again, it can't be, oh, you get anything you want and don't deliver and the company fails. And at the same time, I can't hold the company's need over your ability to deliver a reasonable quality of life. It's not a good deal. I would never ask someone to sacrifice their life for the success of our business. That doesn't make any sense to me. It wouldn't be a successful business. So I got to pontificate and philosophize.
Yeah, the Socratic method of leadership is what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Rather than telling someone what to do, you're asking them the questions that help get to where we need to be.
Right, and there's a book been out, I think since 1960, Atlas Shrugged. Ayn Rand is the author, a philosopher of objectivism, and she basically said, you should never live for the sake of somebody else, and you should never ask somebody else to live for your sake. And I totally believe that. Now, we can choose to engage in relationships, marriage, family, where you sacrifice. And absolutely, I don't think you can have a fulfilling relationship without some of that. But in a business environment, I think it needs to be mutually beneficial.